Hey, what's poppin', everybody? Welcome back to the 2026 FNB App Academy. I am Karabo Mohole. This is a perfect place to get you guys kick-started on building those beautiful apps of yours. So, as you're well aware that we are working close by with the Johannesburg Business School at the University of Johannesburg to bring you guys an incredible 10-week course. All right, so the first 5 weeks will cover digital skills and entrepreneurship, and the second 5 weeks will cover app development and coding. So, last time we completed Module 1, which focused on digital literacy and productivity tools, and I hope your assessments went well and you guys are ready for Module 2, which will focus on the entrepreneurial mindset and business foundations. So before we head over to Devon, let us take a look at one of the previous graduates of the App Academy just to speak about the importance of this particular platform.
Hi guys, my name is Karabelo Malapo, all the way from Free State, Kronstadt, and I'm 21 years old. I've always had a passion for technology from a young age, and I believe technology has a power to change people's lives and create opportunity for young people like me. And what actually inspired me to join FNB App Academy was my desire to grow my skills and gain more knowledge in technology. And I also wanted to challenge myself and learn coding and be part of an environment that actually pushes young people to be innovative and creative. My experience was both exciting and challenging. I was exposed to different areas of technology and coding, which helped me to grow as a person and a future developer. One of the biggest things that I learned is to be consistent and disciplined. I also learned how important problem solving and teamwork are in communication. I get to communicate with some people, networking, and just enjoying how to code. FNB App Academy gave me valuable skills and exposure and a confidence to believe in my future in tech. One of my biggest challenges was adapting to some of coding concepts, especially back-end development. And there were times where I did not have enough data to watch tutorial videos. And I overcame those challenges by staying disciplined, practicing regularly, and believing in myself even when things are difficult. FNB App Academy is the plug for young people because it gives them valuable skills, exposure, and actually confidence to believe in their future. I will actually advise young people out there to never doubt themselves and always be curious to learn. I say, yes, technology is real, but growth takes patience, hard work, and consistency. And with FNB App Academy, you can do that. I see myself as a software developer, self-taught one, and owning a couple of apps. One of my important things I want to do is to change people's lives and play a part in African history. I do have a couple of projects lining up that I might think in future they might work for me, because I still have my own challenges. Yeah, that's. I would actually like to thank FNB Academy for investing in us young people, and also my loved ones to support me throughout the journey.
All right, so awesome stuff. Right now, I think it's time for us to get started with our second module on digital skills and entrepreneurship, focusing on the entrepreneurial mindset and business foundations. So as before, this module will be split into 4 topics. Now, the first topic will cover entrepreneurial mindset, which is the growth, grit, and the 8 core attributes. Now, the second topic will cover opportunity recognition and value creation. All right, and the third topic will cover business model canvas and lean canvas from idea to model. And the fourth topic will cover SA business environment and AI as your business co-pilot. So let's get ready for learning, and let's give a virtual round of applause for our amazing lecturer, Divan Palvu.
Hi everybody, and welcome to today's lesson on Module 2, the entrepreneurial mindset. So for today, we're going to be covering topics 1 and 2, and when I come back, we'll be discussing topic 3 and 4. So by the end of this module, you'll be able to distinguish between what a fixed and a growth mindset is, and apply a growth orientation to the challenges that you experience across or along your entrepreneurial journey. We'll be able to identify the 8 core attributes of an entrepreneurial mindset, including what grit, perseverance, and resilience looks like. We'll apply a business model canvas and a lean canvas, or one of each of them, to map and stress test your business idea so that you move from idea generation to executing against that idea. And then lastly, we're going to use AI as a thinking partner, as mentioned, to refine our value propositions and identify where these business opportunities lie so that we can target the market effectively. So without any further ado, let's jump into the entrepreneurial mindset. What are we going to be learning about the entrepreneurial mindset? We're going to, as mentioned, distinguish between the 2 mindsets, fixed and growth, and explain which one drives entrepreneurial success. And we've got some research that I'm going to unearth that will help you understand why we say it drives entrepreneurial success. We're going to define grit and describe its 2 dimensions, perseverance of effort and consistency of interest. Identify the 8 core attributes within a South African context and provide some examples associated to that. Refine failure, and I think this is one of the things that you're going to experience along your journey, is that you are going to experience failure, you're going to experience rejection, but pulling on these 8 core attributes, you will be able to persevere, and you'll be able to develop the muscle of resilience, which we all have. Some of us just exercise it more than others. So we're going to reframe failure as a data point rather than an identity. I'm going to repeat that. We're going to reframe failure as a data point rather than your identity, using neuroscience and some research evidence that's going to back that. And then lastly, the last learning outcome is then to conduct a personal mindset self-assessment. Very quickly, we'll do that and identify your strongest and your weakest attributes, and then reflect upon that very quickly. Right. So, who do I need to become in order to build this mindset? Before, what should I build? Oftentimes we think about, we land on an idea about building a business or exploiting an opportunity that we've seen within the market, within our communities and the context of our community. And we think to ourselves, yes, I can build that. I can sell this product. I can solve for this need that's in our communities. But we very seldom take time to understand exactly who do I need to become in order to build a successful business? Who do I need to become in order to grow and scale a business to something that's more than just an idea, but a sustainable effort that solves for actual problems and needs in society. And without us understanding who do we need to become in order to build this, that statistic that you see on screen there, that 5 out of 7 businesses, small to medium-sized enterprises, fail within their first year really stands out. It's almost a shock to your system. So we have two mindsets that you could approach that statistic with. The first mindset is entrepreneurship is too risky. The odds are always against us, especially looking at 5 out of 7 businesses that fail within the first year. And that failure is permanent and personal. That's what a fixed mindset would interpret that statistic as. A growth mindset, however, interprets that same statistic as a solvable problem. That what are the 5 businesses that fail, 5 of the 7 businesses do that fail within the first year? What do they do? And how do I learn from what they've done so that I become part of the 2 out of the 7 that succeed within the first year? So a growth mindset sees this as a solvable problem, as what the businesses that survive have that those that have failed don't have or lack. And how do I build more of what those 2 businesses have? Right? So let's reframe failure as not just a data point. Not just your as how you see your identity. Let's reframe failure as a data point from which you can learn from. The view you adopt of yourself rather profoundly affects the way you lead your life. As we've seen on the previous slide, that if we interpret that 5 out of 7 statistic as our identity, we'll see it as way too risky to even embark on the first step of entrepreneurship. So adopting a growth mindset really helps us lead our life, lead our businesses more effectively, more purposefully. It can determine whether you become a person that you want to be, or whether you can also accomplish the goals and desires that you set for yourself. So applied to the South African context, growth mindset seems to be one of the biggest predictors of business success, regardless of your gender, regardless of your age, or regardless of your background. And there's some research that supports that claim. And that you'll find in your learner guide, you'll find on the learning management system as well, as a further reading item. You can dive into the actual body of research in your own time. But let that sink in, that regardless of your age, your gender, or your background, growth mindset is the one predictor of success in comparison to any of those other variables. So let's pause here, take a listen to these videos, and when I see you again, we'll recap on what that looks like, and we'll dive into the mechanics of a fixed mindset as well as a growth mindset in your journey to becoming the business leader that you want to become.
There are 2 types of mindset. There is a fixed mindset and there is a growth mindset. Most people fail in that process because most people live in the fixed mindset. The fixed mindset is, this is who I am, this is what I know, this is what I'm capable of, this is what I'm good at, and this is where I'm going to stay. The growth mindset, it says, this is where I am now. This is what I'm good at now. But I recognize that if I go through a particular process, I can grow myself and become a better person. You need to learn to be uncomfortable. You need to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And you need to be in a space where you allow yourself to be challenged, but more importantly, in a space where you are willing to be uncomfortable and grow.
Many times in entrepreneurship, people say, what are the secrets to success? I share 2 things. Imagine these because they're going to happen. 1, be prepared for a lot of rejection. Whether people close the door in your face or tell you it's never going to happen, you can't do it, you're too old, you don't have the education, you don't have what it takes, somebody else did it, don't listen to them. Don't let it affect you. The second thing is that your service or your product must be the highest quality you can possibly make it. Because you don't want to be in the selling business. You want a product or a service so good that you're in the reorder business, not the selling business. Someone wants to talk about it, they want to reorder, they want it to be part of their lives, or it's so good they want to tell other people about it.
So I think the core message that both of these videos illustrate or talk about is that ideas are cheap. Anyone can come up with an idea. But it's in the execution of that idea where value lies, where funding lies, where opportunities are validated. And that's a core distinction between these fixed and growth mindset. In a fixed mindset, you often sit with the idea and you think to yourself, why can't person X or person Y buy into this? Why aren't people purchasing what I'm trying to sell? Whereas a growth mindset seeks out ways upon which they can learn from what other people have done and what you are currently doing to ensure that you grow your business, right? So a fixed mindset. And I'd like you to reflect on these two columns of text that's on screen, and you can read a lot faster than I can talk. So as I'm narrating or talking about the fixed and growth mindset, I want you to think to yourself, which mindset do I often find myself in? Which mindset, which column do I oftentimes find myself spending a lot of time in? In a fixed mindset, we believe that our attributes or our abilities are fixed. That we either have something or we don't have the ability to do something. It's sort of cast in iron in our minds that I'm able to do this or I'm not able to do this. I'm able to play hockey or I'm not able to play hockey. As opposed to, I can play hockey, but you know, I've got this fear about coming in for the tackle on the wrong side, so therefore I don't learn how to approach it from the other side of the player. The second bit there is I avoid challenges to protect a self-image that I've already created about myself, or a self-image that others have told me that, hey, Devon, this is who you are. This is what I believe that you are able to do. This is your lot in life. We avoid challenging that perception that we've built about ourselves based on what we've told ourselves or based on what others have told us. We give up often when obstacles arise. We don't embrace a new challenge. And we ignore feedback and criticism. And I arguably believe that feedback and criticism is the breakfast of champions, so to speak. I believe that it's important that we open our ears to what other people are hearing when we talk, observing when we behave, and telling us when we fault or when we succeed. A fixed mindset ignores all of those measures of feedback and criticism, positive or negative, and instead we frame this picture about ourselves that we are not business people and that we can't become business people because I was never a business person. A growth mindset, on the other hand, says that our abilities can be developed through effort and perseverance or persistence. We can embrace challenges as opportunities to grow, opportunities to improve, opportunities to be better. We persist through setbacks, and we learn from criticism and apply the feedback that we've received, that either others have told us or that we've seen from ourselves. Oftentimes something that I do, which I use as feedback for myself, is I record myself having a conversation about, endeavoring to pitch to a new client or sell a product. I record myself in the mirror and I look at myself thereafter and I think to myself, these things I need to improve. I need to change the body language. I need to change the way I use my hands in conversations. I need to change the pace of my discussion so that I keep people engaged as opposed to lose people because I might have spoken too fast. So a growth mindset says, I'm always in the process of becoming a better business individual or a better business person. So I hope you took time to sit and reflect upon which column describes you most. And as we navigate through, these topics, the 4 topics that we're going to be discussing, I want you to recognize and understand that no one is purely fixed or purely growth. Most people are more growth oriented in some areas or more fixed in some other areas, and that's okay. I want you to notice that, as mentioned, which column you find yourself in, and recognize that you're not purely just isolated to one, that you can meander between one and the other. And as you build your business, it's important that we build a level of awareness around, I'm operating in the fixed mindset now, and maybe I need to get out of that state of operation very quickly, or I need to get out of that state of operation whenever I'm working with one particular client, with a team member, or so forth, or when I'm building a technology a product. And recognize that I need to move into a growth mindset so that I'm able to lead myself, lead my business, and lead my team more effectively. And the truth is this, that we are always in the state of becoming. It's physiological, it's not just psychological. If you think of it from a physiological point of view, when you were born, you were in the state of becoming a toddler, a kid, a early teen, or preteen, a teenager, an adult, early adult. You're always in the state of becoming someone physiologically. And the same is true for our mindset. Right? That our mindset is always in the state of becoming. So the founder of the term growth mindset, her name is Dr. Carol Dweck. And she found that people with a fixed mindset show no measurable growth, show no measurable brain activity whenever they are reviewing mistakes. Whether the mistake is catastrophic or whether the mistake is very small. And I like to think of a brain that has very little brain activity as, if you think of a jar, if we take this cup that's sitting next to me, or in front of me rather, and if the cup had a snail inside of it, if I shake the cup with the snail inside of it, the snail might cling onto the glass, or the porcelain rather. Or putting the cup down, the snail might move very slowly around. And I think to myself that no brain activity generally feels like that. If I were to look inside of an active brain and observe its behavior, no measurable brain activity oftentimes look like you can't see the changes, right? Even though we are moving from one client to the next, our fingers coding on a laptop and so forth. We are moving at a particular speed, but with a fixed mindset, it's oftentimes the opposite. And there's Dr. Carol Dweck has identified a lot of research that supports this claim that people with a fixed mindset show no measurable brain activity when reviewing mistakes. On the contrast to that, though, a growth mindset shows significant processing activity. I like to think of marbles in the same cup, and we might want to sort of close off the top of the cup, right? Or put it in a jar, marbles in a jar, and we shake the jar. I think that when learning from failure, learning from challenges and mistakes that you make with a growth mindset, and if you shake that jar with all those marbles inside of it, you see them firing from one side of the jar to the next. And I like to think of that illustration when I see the research around a growth mindset, learning from mistakes. And you're seeing the brain firing its neurons from one side of the jar to the next, just in the same way that marbles would do, right? And in that way, you can recognize now that these two mindsets are not just something intangible, but you have to recognize that your brain operates at a particular level when you function in a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. So Dr. Carol Dweck, and there's another short video here, which we'll pause in a few seconds, but she talks about these two concepts of perseverance of effort and consistency of interest. Let's take a quick listen to how she describes grit and the importance of grit when unpacking these two concepts. And I'll come back to you and we'll flesh it out slightly more.
One characteristic emerged as a significant predictor of success, and it wasn't social intelligence, it wasn't good looks, physical health, and it wasn't IQ. It was grit. Grit is passion and perseverance for very long-term goals. Grit is having stamina. Grit is sticking with your future, day in, day out, not just for the week, not just for the month, but for years, and working really hard to make that future a reality.
So there we can see, as Carol Dweck is talking about grit and these passion and perseverance traits, that she emphasizes that perseverance beats passion for sustaining a business every single time. Grit matters more even when we have underrepresented groups in South Africa that are building organizations and building businesses, whether registered or not registered. Perseverance, as we've seen, is about continuing to work hard despite setbacks and obstacles and plateaus of business. So oftentimes in the season of an organization, you'll go through growth cycles. And this plateau is oftentimes you find yourself in a comfortable state where you're not attracting new clients or selling more or less, but you're selling the same volume from the previous month. And if you take a 3-month view of your sales volume, sales hasn't really picked up or hasn't really dropped. So you're plateauing, right? And oftentimes that's a dangerous place to be in. But perseverance of effort says that I'm going to push through that season of plateau so that I resell and start moving into a growth state of my business once again, right? And perseverance of effort is referred to as this discipline dimension, where regardless of whether I'm selling less or selling more, I'm going to continue and persevere through that season. Consistency of effort is about maintaining focus on the same long-term goal rather than switching when the excitement regarding that goal fades. And oftentimes I find myself in this position where I'm excited about a particular piece of work that I'm doing with a client, and it might span across 3 to 6 months. And during that time, another client might come around with a equally as exciting project. And because I'm excited by planning maybe, that I lose my focus. And the consistency of interest along the journey of a particular piece of work builds trust within your clients. Not just to ensure that you deliver that project across the course of those 6 months effectively, but that there's repeat business that comes alongside that. So trust is a byproduct of you persevering through effort, but also through being consistent in the amount of interest that you display across multiple different projects. So there we can see perseverance is a strong driver of entrepreneurial action, more than just having passion. Passion often starts a business. It displays a high level of excitement and interest in a particular piece of work. But perseverance is the muscle that sustains that effort over time, that sustains that effort more than just through exciting seasons or plateauing seasons or seasons of challenge, obstacle, and low growth. And for South African entrepreneurs, I feel that specifically grit is more strongly related to self-employment, freelancing, or risk takers, women and younger individuals. It's a more important attribute than groups that are overrepresented in formal environments rather than in township environments. I want you to take a lot of focus upon that there, that perseverance is that one strong driver that entrepreneurs leverage to drive business success. So let's take a look at the core 8 skills and core 8 attributes that are not fixed traits. Right? The first is opportunity recognition. And these are oftentimes seen as, we can look around us and identify these unmet opportunities, right, that oftentimes others overlook, and they think to themselves rather that this is not something that I want to get involved in. It's not a business idea that I ever saw myself building. But it's opportunity recognition is an entrepreneurial trait that we use to scan the environment and identify where an unmet needs or an unmet need lies, and not necessarily taking advantage of that need, but just seeing the opportunity, seeing the need, and recognizing that it's a problem that can be fulfilled. The second is innovation and creativity. And this is about adapting solutions to new contexts. So you might see that a payment solution in the formal sector might be working very well within that environment. Maybe we off at the Maboneng precinct down in central Johannesburg, and we're having a good time on a Saturday afternoon and with some friends, and we pay for a beverage or we pay for a meal or something of interest, and we don't use cash, but we use an electronic payment solution, and we think to ourselves, back home, back in my suburb, back in my community, back in the context within which the business environment which I serve, this solution is something that can definitely solve for a pain point that exists in a new context. And you bring that solution you adapt that solution from the formal sector to an informal sector, or from the informal sector to the formal sector. Innovation and creativity works both ways, because you are adapting a solution from one context to the next. The third is around risk tolerance, assessing and taking calculated risks. Right? This is not about taking a risk that you blindly just embark on because you believe and you're excited by the opportunity, but you're evaluating the risk and you're determining whether this is something that has the ability to thrive within the context of the business environment, or whether the risk is just too great and there's a high opportunity of failure within the environment. And maybe the conditions of the environment are not just suited for that type of risk. Right. Fourth is proactivity and initiative, shaping opportunities and not just waiting for them to happen. I oftentimes look at the likes of initiative when I see this trait, that am I taking the initiative? Am I being proactive to shape an opportunity that might be available to me, that might be available to you, as opposed to just sitting back and waiting for this opportunity to be shaped by someone else for you to take advantage of. Instead, you are leading the charge, and you are leading you're being maverick in taking the initiative to solve for that particular opportunity. The fifth attribute or disposition is around resilience and adaptability. We've already spoken quite a bit about resilience when discussing growth mindset. What's important about resilience and adaptability within the South African environment is that we adjust our strategy against the conditions of the market that change so aggressively. All right. Number 6, resourcefulness, is efficiently using what you have available to yourself. And I think later during the course of these topics, as we discuss artificial intelligence, we are seeing that there are a lot of open weight artificial intelligence applications that are extremely cheap, that are essentially free in most cases, that we're able to leverage to equalize the barrier to entry in certain markets, in certain conditions, in certain communities. And it's important that you leverage the resourcefulness of yourself to efficiently use what is available as an entrepreneur. The 7th attribute is growth orientation. To continuously learn, to continuously improve, to continuously listen to feedback and take criticism, both negatively and positively, and identify that as as a data point around how you can continuously learn, how you can grow, and how you can be a better business leader, how you can be a better person, and how you continuously become the individual that you're looking to be, that your business needs you to be, and that the market needs you to be, rather. And then lastly, arguably one of the most important attributes and skills is vision and purpose. We don't start businesses because we purely just see this opportunity that can be solved for. We start businesses because we have a vision and because we have a purpose that we believe that transcends your own capability. So in crafting a vision and a purpose and a value proposition for your business, we set clear objectives and a compelling mission so that when people realize that you're not just selling a clothing item, but you are clothing a community, that you are clothing the context of the people that don't have, and providing a need to solve for that gap, that purpose becomes something that transcends just what you sell, but it becomes a mission that people come around and people support and people grow amongst. Oftentimes we look around us and we see someone that has already built something and we think, I can't do that. Why should I build that? What's important is that there's nothing new under the sun. Your vision and your purpose and your mission differentiates you from anyone else. And that's why it's important that we build a vision and a purpose for our business. So earlier in the topic, we spoke about failure as a data point as opposed to who you are or your identity. So if failure is a data point, it can be useful, right? One, every business has failed at something. It might not be a failure, but it has failed at an endeavor in order to achieve the mission that it has crafted for itself, or along the journey of executing against its vision and against its purpose. Every business has failed at some point in time along those train tracks. What's important is that they start. It's important that you start. And that's arguably the single biggest category of entrepreneurship that leads to business success or business failure. The second point around recognizing that data around failure can be useful is that the most common causes of small to medium-sized enterprise failure is unprofitability or lack of finance or lack of funding, the gap from between your expertise or expertise gaps, skills gaps. All of these are addressable. All of these can be solved for. All of these matters around unprofitability or lack of revenue, lack of funding or lack of finance and access to finance, a lack of skills and expertise, they are all gaps that can be closed. Lack of, for instance, if we dive into this data point, if we look at businesses at the moment that are unregistered, meaning that they have not registered their business with SIPC, these organizations, these enterprises struggle to get finance because banks look for registered entities that have a legal tax reference number in order to process finance and funding applications against their business value proposition. Solving for a lack of finance and bank loans and so forth means that we register on SIPC. That takes us very little in order to, if not free, in order to create that registration. Skills gaps, the market for talent and accessing talent today, especially if you look at the likes of LinkedIn or freelance job portals like Fiverr and freelance.com and so forth, we can close those skill gaps very quickly. We can hire expertise on a freelance basis very quickly and efficiently in order to address those skill gaps that you might have. And then we can see those are just two examples around how we can close these gaps And ultimately, I want to say that they are not, the fact that there are gaps and lack or unprofitability, it doesn't mean that that's inevitable. It means that those gaps are closable. And then lastly, the most effective learning comes from reflection on failure systematically and not avoiding it. And what I want to give you as part of that data point is, how do I use learning from failure as an opportunity to do something differently? Not just about your business, but about yourself as well. And I want to give you this framework. It's a 4-step framework identified by an individual by the name of Kolb, K-L-O-B. There's an extra additional learning resource within the learning management system. You can take some time to go through that. But this model is known as an experiential learning model, or an experiential learning framework. And it includes 4 steps. The first is about an event. Something has happened. You got rejected by a client, or your proposal did not go as planned, and you lost the client, you didn't get a renewal, or something of that nature. Something took place. So we categorize that as an event. That's the first data point, essentially, along this journey of identifying how to learn from failure. Something happened. The second dimension, or second step within this process, is then to recognize, how did that event make you feel? And what did I do when that event took place? So if you stay with me on this idea, let's say I submitted a proposal for a new client around them onboarding my technology, subscribing to my service that would be distributed across the entire organization if it's a B2B customer. And they said they're going to go with someone that's a bit more established in the market, and that's got a bit more support behind them in terms of how they manage the application. How did that make you feel? Maybe you felt rejected. Maybe you felt that, I'm just not cut out for this. And maybe thereafter, you went home, or you went back to your office, and that evening you sat down and you sort of spiraled into a state of depression. You thought to yourself, this is just absolutely not going to work. I don't know if I'm cut out for this. And that's okay. What's important is you recognize how that made you feel and what you did. We are not in the state of changing that behavior just yet, right? We are within these first 2 steps, we are in the mindset that recognizes what is taking place. An event took place, we got rejected by a client, we've got some reasons as far as why that rejection took place. The second step is then, how did that make you feel? Did you feel depressed? Did you feel worried? Did you feel anxious? And what did you do? Did you cower into a corner, or did you propel yourself to do something else? The third step is, what did you notice about yourself before you made the pitch, while you were making the pitch, and after the pitch was made, or after you received the feedback? What happened before, during, and after that event? Or, sorry, what did you notice about yourself before, during, and after that event? And then lastly, this is where we start to exercise the muscle of the growth mindset. Right? It's, what could I do differently whenever this event reoccurs? And I can guarantee you that you're going to experience more experiences or events of rejection. You're going to experience more opportunities where you're going to make pitches. So you need to recognize what you do before you present your business and present yourself to the client, or to a bank, or to the investor. What did you do to yourself before? How did you prepare for that engagement? How did you ensure that you put your best foot forward during your pitch or your interview? What did you notice about yourself during? Were you nervous? Were you anxious? What happened to yourself physiologically and psychologically? What can you do during those experiences when you feel nervous? What can you do in order to calm your nerves? And then after the event, right? How do you ensure that you interpret the feedback that either the client or the investor or the funder, how do you ensure that after having that conversation, that you use that feedback as fuel for your growth, as opposed to fuel that fixes your mindset around, this is just not, I'm not cut out for this, right? Therein lies the difference, the segregation between that fixed and growth mindset coming through again. How do we use that feedback to learn and grow from the data, as opposed to, this is just my lot in life. So I've got an example that I want to take you through around how Thandi, a fashion retailer, thought about herself as not just, she was never a business person, right? And this was reinforced every time a customer negotiated her price point down, or a competitor undercut her. And one of the biggest challenges about entrepreneurship is pricing your product. Because especially if you are a solopreneur, meaning that it's just you, yourself, and yourself, how do you, oftentimes attaching a price point to a product is attaching a price point to yourself. It's very difficult to separate the two, especially when you are selling. So it's important to recognize that attach value to yourself and attach value to your product so that you identify what the right price point is, and you'll find that you pitch the same product at one price point to one client and a completely different price point to another client, until you get to a point where you've identified where your product price market fit is, and that's where you'll start sort of developing confidence in positioning that price point to the market, right? So continuing with Thandi, when load shedding intensified in 2021, most of her competitors slowed down. However, she built a financial understanding that by attending these free CEDA workshops, and we'll dive into CEDA as an entity a little later on in one of the following topics. Through attending these workshops, she raised her prices and positioned herself as a premium, reliable service, and invested in a solar setup in order to ensure that while her competitors slowed down because they didn't have access to electricity during a very sort of troublesome time in our context back in 2021, that she now used the funding that she received from CEDA in order to purchase a piece of technology that helped her maintain her product development, and through that leverage the scarcity that existed in her community in order to position her product as a premium service, and doubled her revenue between 2022 and 2024. If she had a fixed mindset, she would have just stuck and said, this is just, everybody else is going through this here, this is just what we have to deal with. And I can't change because this is what everybody else is doing. So I'm not alone in the journey. But her growth mindset says, I'm going to look around, identify what's taking place, and I'm going to become a business person by exploiting the market conditions to ensure that I can grow at a rate that my competitors cannot grow at. So Thandi's story shows that a growth mindset plus grit plus resilience combining to a real business outcome during a very troublesome time in her business journey. And as you read through this here, and as you listen to me, I want you to reflect, which of the 8 attributes has Thandi used in demonstrated through this scenario? And what experience helped her gain an advantage or a head start against a fixed belief. And as you reflect on that, I want you to take away these 4 points around this first topic. A growth mindset is the strongest predictor of entrepreneurial success in South Africa, in the South African environment, regardless of age, gender, or background. I think that's such a big predictor of entrepreneurial success, that regardless of who you are, where you come from, by leveraging a growth mindset, you're able to overcome. Grit has 2 dimensions: perseverance of effort and consistency of interest. And perseverance beats passion. That excitement is going to come and it's going to fade. But leveraging grit will help you, will see you through that season of excitement or of the lull of rejection along your entrepreneurial journey. I didn't mention this earlier, but along your entrepreneurship journey, you will not just experience rejection, but you'll experience loneliness. Building your community will help you develop the muscle of grit, because while in your community of entrepreneurs, one might be in a season of loneliness or rejection, another might be in a season of success and landing 1 or 2 clients or 3 or 4 clients, or consistently on a very mature growth path. By working together and sharing that community, you are able to overcome the season of lullness or rejection and loneliness. But it takes a community to build grit. There are 8 core attributes that are learnable skills. They are not unsolvable. They are not fixed traits, and they are anchored by a growth mindset. And then lastly, failure is data. It is not your identity. There are 2 questions that I'd like you to ask yourself when you're reflecting on data, on failure rather, as the data point. What did failure teach me? And why did I fail? And if you can answer those 2 questions using that framework around the experiential learning model, you'll be able to identify what those events taught me. What did how I thought about myself teach me? And why did I fail? What happened before, during, and after the failure that I can learn about how I can improve next time? So as we move over to topic 2, I want you to pause and reflect. Which column of the fixed or growth mindset table describes you more often when things go wrong? And think of specific examples. Right? Don't just try and think about this in your head. Write it down. It's important that we in the digital world, it's really important that we continue to write because it activates the brain. It activates as mentioned earlier, the sort of the marbles within the jar that help your brain activity to fire from one side of the brain to the next. Writing activates those neural pathways and neural patterns. Secondly, I want you to think of the 8 entrepreneurial attributes. Which 2 are your strengths and which 2 need development? And just identify 2 within each of those different domains. Which are your strengths and which are your areas of development? And focus on trying to improve the one and developing the other. And then lastly, think of business failure. Maybe think of a business failure rather. Maybe it's a previous business that you embarked on over the course of your life thus far. Or maybe it's someone you know that has failed at business. What was the data that they generated, and how can you learn from those failure moments? Right. When you come back, we're going to dive into the second topic around opportunity recognition and value creation. Welcome back from your break. We've reflected upon those questions. We are going to dive into topic 2 of this module, opportunity recognition and value creation. Most businesses start with an idea, and I think I might have echoed that sentiment when we start topic 1, that most businesses start with an idea. And oftentimes those ideas are novel, and those ideas are things that have sat with us for a while, and we've built up the courage, or circumstances have just sort of worked together in order for you to now embark on delivering against that idea. But I want to challenge that. The best businesses start with a problem that they want to solve for, not an idea. And today what we're going to do as we dive into topic 2 is to learn to see the difference between generating an idea that you believe is something that could be solvable through a commercial entity, or seeing a problem, identifying a problem that is solvable, and through leveraging your growth mindset that we learned about in topic 1, we're able to then solve for that problem that serves our communities, that serves a business environment or a particular context. So I want you to recognize this one distinction, that ideas are cheap to come by. Everybody's got an idea, but opportunities are validated. And I'm going to show you how we can convert, or first and foremost, how we're going to distinguish between those two, and then how we can validate our opportunities and what we can use to identify that area of validation. So in this topic, we are going to distinguish between a business idea and a genuine business opportunity, apply problem-first thinking and 4 opportunity recognition tools. I'm going to identify and show you what those look like. I want you to describe South Africa's innovation gap and how this gap creates structural opportunity for entrepreneurs. We're going to define a value proposition, or define what a value proposition is, and articulate at least 5 different types of value a business can offer. And then lastly, we're going to construct a clear, customer-centered value statement for your business. I'm going to show you how to get going with that there. So this is somewhat of a practical topic, because entrepreneurship is about doing things. I'm going to walk you through in a very sort of paced manner to show you exactly how you can achieve these learning objectives by the time we end this topic. Okay, so let's start with this question. Does anyone actually build, or does anyone actually want what you built? I want you to actually allow that to sink in. Does anybody want the idea that you've thought about? And maybe you've not only just thought about the idea and had this idea that spanned with you for some time, but you actually built a product and converted that idea into a product and started to sell it. And then you started to experience some rejection. You started to experience some lull in the endeavor of building and scaling out the business and generating revenue. Have you ever asked yourself the question, does anyone actually want what you've built? CB Insights consistently finds that no market need is the common, or among rather, the top reasons why startups fail globally. That startups build these ideas that they believe that the market needs, that industry needs, that the corporates need, but then they fail. And that's not because there's a lack of capital. These startups have built products. It's not bad timing. Nobody just wanted it badly enough to pay for it. I'm going to repeat myself there. Nobody wanted it badly enough for them to pay for it. And in South Africa, it's no different. Many businesses are solutions looking for problems rather than problems that found their solution. The antidote here is that we need to learn to see opportunity before we build. But how do we do that? Right? What we need to do is I'm going to walk you through how we can formulate our problem, how we can identify that an idea, it might be something novel, but if that idea really has a certain level of validation to it, how do we then convert that idea from just something that was novel into an opportunity? Because that is definitely possible. Right? And one thing that can help us, and I touched on it briefly in topic 1, is that we've got an equalizer that is available to us for today, which is artificial intelligence, or generative artificial intelligence, specifically speaking. Large language models are trained on an enormous amount of data. Right? If you think of Google search and a ChatGPT dialog box, they look very similar, right? Google search essentially searches the world's information and surfaces that information in a search engine format, right? So it ranks, various websites and information, and at the moment it surfaces an AI mode where it also summarizes some information. But those are two different mechanisms that are being used, right? They're two different technologies at play. When we look at the AI mode, it is a retrieval of data, of information, this information that it's trained on. It's retrieving the text, and through its machine learning algorithm, so I'm getting a little bit technical today, but we spoke about it being slightly more practical. It's leveraging the machine learning algorithm in order to predict which word goes after the previous one. Within the context of the prompt, the context of the question that you're framing, and that's why it's very important that you be very deliberate and specific within your prompt, so that you put some guardrails, right? You give it certain context within which it can formulate that output or that answer for you. So when you type the question, the model is not necessarily thinking the way humans do. It's predicting. And what's important about converting an idea into an opportunity, you can ask it to predict multiple different outcomes. So how do we develop a deep understanding of a problem? By leveraging generative artificial intelligence. Maybe it's Google's Gemini, ChatGPT, Claude, or if you're in the Microsoft stack, it might be Copilot. How do we use these large language models, or generative AI applications, in order to develop a deep understanding of the problem that you've identified and the idea that you want to convert into an opportunity? If generative AI is trained on the world's data, let's ask it to predict a different outcome in a different community, a cash-strung community, a cash-flush community, a private sector, public sector, a low-growth economy. You can add all these variables into a large language model and ask it to predict how you build an opportunity based on this idea that can help you ultimately lead to a sale. So I've got another video to show you. And this video is going to help you develop the mechanics around how you can convert this idea that you believe in wholeheartedly, that you're building your business vision, your business purpose, and your business mission upon, how we can convert this idea into an opportunity. And ultimately, those opportunities lead to sales in multiple different environments, multiple different communities and contexts, private and public sector, and so forth. So let's take an opportunity to watch this video. And when we come back, I'll debrief it and we'll take it from there.
One of the things as an entrepreneur that we need to be able to distinguish between is what we call an idea and an opportunity. Now, this might sound like just semantics because they seem pretty similar. And to this point, we've talked a little about ideas and how they are sort of the starting point into this entrepreneurial venture. And we know that they are critically important. But we need to think through the fact that there are distinguishable or noticeable differences between both an idea and an opportunity. And so they don't carry the same weight. So what we're going to talk about in this video is how to distinguish between the two and how to determine really if you have an opportunity that could be worth pursuing. We're going to give you a short, very simple framework to at least kind of have a litmus test as to whether or not your idea might be more of an opportunity. So starting with an idea, we can see on the left-hand side, denoted by this light bulb here, is an idea is simply a belief of how something should work. There is no profit generated from this. It is simply in the early stages. We merely have a belief about how something might work and how we might be able to potentially get something into a market. But ideas in themselves are not actually all that valuable. And the reason for that is you can't sell ideas. You can't patent them. They can't be commercialized just yet. But ideas are the pathway to how we get to ultimately the opportunity. So we know that they're important for that reason. But beyond that, they don't have a whole lot of significance here. And so what we want to be able to do is we want to have a very simple way of testing our ideas to seeing if they're actually opportunities. Because in the idea phase, things don't have a great deal of viability. And so the last thing we want to do is to waste a lot of time on ideas. We want to quickly be able to vet them to figure out if they're actually opportunities. So a quick way, if you wanted to determine if something could be more of an opportunity in just a short, simple framework, is you want to ask yourself really 3 questions, truthfully. You want to know if there is a market for your idea. And by a market, what I mean is there actually people who will pay for your solution? Do people have the problem that you believe that they have? Unless there are people that are out there that are going to be willing to part with their hard-earned money, there is not a market for this particular idea. An opportunity does not exist, right? We need customers to be able to not only validate that there is a problem and our solution is a suitable way to address that problem, but we also need them to be able to earn revenue to make this a viable business. Unless there is a market for our idea, there is no opportunity here, unfortunately. Now, ways to test this, of course, can include trying to sell a particular product, but can also include things like engaging in customer discovery, where we're going out and talking to potential customers, people that we believe have a problem and that our solution might remedy, and interacting with them and kind of gathering information to see if our assumptions are essentially true. Those could be ways to kind of unlock the next step, if you will, and then we can move on to potentially developing minimum viable products and doing a little bit more thorough testing before we're at the point where we're actually operating a business. But a simple question is, are there people out there that would pay for a solution that we have? Now, the next component here, besides a market, is do we have the money? Depending upon the idea that you're pursuing, it might be more capital intensive than others. If it's a service-related idea, there's a possibility you might be able to simply just bootstrap it and utilize your existing resources and maybe some other funds that you have at your disposal. But if you're thinking about developing a manufacturing company, then you're going to need some pretty deep pockets or access to those that have deep pockets to be able to fund not only facility requirements and upgrades and equipment and inventory and all those types of things. So if you potentially have a market for it or believe that you do, the next piece is the money. If you don't think there's going to be a possibility for you to be able to acquire the resources that you need to, at the very least, test your assumptions, it's going to be really hard to justify moving forward with that idea. The last piece is what we call management. And by management, no, I don't mean if you have managerial experience, although that could be helpful if you're building a team. What I do mean is, do you have the skills, the knowledge, the abilities, or maybe even the connections and network that would assist you in being able to kind of build on this opportunity here? So if you're looking at getting involved in the restaurant industry and maybe opening up your own restaurant, do you have restaurant experience? Maybe you worked for a restaurant before, maybe you were a general manager of a restaurant working underneath someone else and acquiring some additional skills. Those are the types of things that would be helpful, right? If you're developing an application of some kind, it would be helpful to know how to write some type of code. Those are the things that are really important. So what you want to think about in being able to distinguishing, is this really just an idea? And really, we have a lot of ideas, right? Some of them are okay, some of them are bad, and some turn out to be great. But if you want to quickly measure whether or not the idea that you have in your possession is in fact an opportunity, try looking at or asking yourselves these 3 questions. Ask yourself, is there a market for it? Are there people willing to pay? Can I acquire the resources needed to be able to get this thing off the ground? And do I have some of the skills or the connections, the network, to be able to also unlock some doors and to move on and be able to start this business? Obviously, if this management piece, you can always look at possible co-founders and people that have complementary skill sets that you might not have access to. But ultimately, what I want to press upon you is we have many, many ideas about potential problems and products and services and things like that. And what we want to do is have a very simple framework for being able to quickly determine whether or not those ideas have potential value and might be potential opportunity, because it doesn't do us any benefit to spend time on something that is always going to be in the idea phase and doesn't have any long-term implications for our business.
Welcome back. A very insightful video around converting your idea and opportunity into opportunities and ultimately leading to multiple different sales. So summarizing that video, there's a critical distinction that we need to take stock of. That we have ideas, which are something that you think of. Maybe it's raw material that's not really a finished product yet. It's a diamond that's rough around the edges that you need to refine further. And ideas can come from anywhere. It can come from anyone. It can come from any interaction. The difference between an idea and opportunity is that an opportunity has 4 traits. It's specific, it's a felt problem that people experience regularly. And I think the operative word there is experience. Right? A problem is something that people experience within a particular frequency. And oftentimes they experience that on a daily basis, or it might be weekly, or it might be monthly. There's a viable market that is suffering from this problem, and enough people are experiencing it. Right? Once again, that word experience comes through again. The third trait is that you have or can build the capability to deliver it. It might be that you need to pull on, if there's an experience or capability or skill gap that you might have. Once again, remember we spoke about this in topic 1, that you can seek the skills in a platform like Fiverr, like freelance.com, or any of those gig economy platforms. So you might not have the capability, but you can hire the capability to build it for you. People are willing to spend money on it in order to solve the problem, right? There's enough of a frustration that people have built up around this problem that they experience on a regular basis, that they're willing to spend money on someone that's willing to solve for that problem. And then lastly, you can build that problem. You can build that capability. Right? So there are 4 tools for opportunity recognition. 1, we need to develop this problem-first thinking, not ideas-based thinking or idea-first thinking. Right? So what annoys my community most about the problem? What workaround are people usually doing or taking? And is there a hidden opportunity that exists in and amongst that? The second tool that you can use in order to develop this opportunity-based thinking is around observation and empathy mapping. And you might think that this sounds very like design thinking. You see the word empathy mapping and you think, I need to put a map of some sorts together. It's a lot simpler than that, right? Observation and empathy mapping simply means having conversations with people at the most simplistic level. It's walking amongst your targeted market environment. It's talking to potential customers, and it's watching people, watching what they do. It's not asking what they want. And oftentimes we lean very quickly to that because that is like, I want to deliver, I want to build, I want to create. But slowing down helps us observe what people do and engage in conversation with them to ask them, like, how does that make you feel? Because if you're solving for that feeling, they feel like they're being heard, and that you build a connection between your product, your business, yourself, and the problem and the end user or the purchaser, the consumer. You're building a connection, an emotive connection that does not make them want to go anywhere else. That makes them want to come back and repeat business or make repeat purchases from you. A third way in order to take advantage of an opportunity is to identify any trends. So scrolling across social media and identifying these trends that might take place or that are taking place, and within that trend there's an opportunity for solving the problem that might cause the trend or that is coming about as a result of the trend. So if you think of social media at the moment, and there's a lot of doom scrolling going on, and people are looking for mental health opportunities or mental health mechanisms in order to improve their screen time, manage their screen time, not just for themselves, but for their kids as well, in order to really take a mental health approach to their life and the way in which they live their life. The problem that comes alongside social media today is that we spend too much time. So we develop cognitive debt, which slows our ability to think critically, and essentially we don't do anything new. Trend spotting in that is to identify how you can help facilitate mental health support mechanisms to communities that may be schools, an education regime in a school around what are safe and healthy digital practices for social media in a primary school or in a high school. It's just one of those ideas. Buy now, pay later platforms. They are popping up almost everywhere at the moment. In South Africa locally, we've got Payflex, Happy Pay, Float, and a few others, to name a few. But if we look globally, there's over 200 buy now, pay later platforms, right? It's because people have recognized, or entrepreneurs have recognized, that there's access to credit, access to finance, access to a smarter way to essentially lay by a product. And as opposed to only getting it after I've received the full payment as a consumer, as a provider of the product, the buy now, pay later solution will actually pay the company, and you will pay the buy now, pay later provider and get your product on the same day. So it shortens the time for you to actually feel the product that you're purchasing, right? But that's another trend that has come up. Social commerce is another one, and every change creates a gap. And I think that's the most important thing about this third opportunity recognition trait or tool, is that every change, every transformation, every disruption creates a gap that is waiting to be solved for. And the fourth opportunity recognition tool is around gap analysis. And it's like asking questions like, what can people only get badly? Right? This is the very core of a very large economy in South Africa, the township economy or the informal sector. It's like, what do people struggle to get and can only get when they get it very badly? So they get a poor service of a particular product or service, right? The experience of receiving the outcome of the purchase is very poorly managed. And how do we solve for that bad experience, or that poor customer service mechanism, and deliver something a lot more superior, right? And if you take a listen to that video that we watched earlier today, you want to create a product that is far superior from others, because you don't want to be in the selling game. You want to sell once and have the product sell for you thereafter. And that's what this gap analysis helps us produce. It helps us elevate the service received for people that generally receive the service very poorly. As we jump into value proposition, I want you to think of these 6 types of values that you can create. And I want us to recognize that the first one is newness. So you could create a new product that is new to the market. It's meeting a customer's need that they didn't know they had. If you think of the iPhone back in 2007, it was the first of its kind, right? There might have been other touchscreen devices, but all those touchscreen devices had keyboards. So the newness of this product gave it a new feel, a premium feel. It solved a need that nobody knew that we had. The second is around performance, delivering existing offerings, but just significantly better. So improving the performance of a particular product or service that's in the industry by 10 times better or by 20 times better. Customization, so you're providing a tailored solution to individual customer needs, something that is specific and bespoke to what you're looking for. You could look at that at individual level, so creating craft items that there's just one of its kind for one customer, or customizing for a particular target market, right? So for an entire group or populace of people, you are customizing your service and you're tailoring it to multiple different people. But regardless of that, you're providing something that is customizable to the individual. The fourth value proposition or way that you can identify value and create value is through convenience or accessibility. Allowing easier access is a lot more powerful in the informal or rural markets, especially where there's a lack of infrastructure. And by you creating convenience or accessibility of your products to that particular market means that you are creating value where people could not experience that value before, or it was an extremely expensive way in order for them to experience the value of a particular product or service. By you building a convenience or accessibility mechanism helps you drive a value. The penultimate one is around price, which is oftentimes where we spend a lot of time in. Similar qualities at a lower price point or a competitive price point. We oftentimes think that we should be lowering our price point in order to gain access to new customers. The conundrum with this is sometimes where you lower your price point in an established market, people might think that it is of a lower quality at the same time. So you want to ensure that you raise your quality, and that's where the word similar quality comes in there as well. You want to make sure that you position your product as a superior or similar quality to your competitors, but at a slightly cheaper price point, if that is the strategy that you are taking in order to prove that you have value that you want to offer to the market. And then lastly, risk reduction. So pay after delivery is oftentimes a way in which you can provide value to a market where the target market or the community that you're selling your product to is very risk averse. Where oftentimes in these type of markets, or these type of communities rather, they've been cheated out, they've been scammed and so forth. And where that behavior exists, where those target markets and those populations of people those customer segments have been taken advantage of, where they were forced to pay before delivery was taking place, you could create more value in the sense that you are now delivering on the same day that that payment is taking place, or allow for payment to take place after you've delivered. Or 50-50, right? So 50% upfront, 50% on delivery. Or a digital solution that allows for the purchaser to track the delivery of the product or service. So those are 6 ways that you can bring about value to your customer segment, or the customers that you're seeking to sell your product towards. Which one would you choose? If you look at each of these, newness, performance, customization, accessibility or convenience, price and risk reduction, which one would you choose? And to help you make that decision, maybe it's 2 or 3 of those, it might not necessarily just be one, but to help you make that decision, it's important that you know your customer segment first. It's important that you know who you're selling to, what are the problems that they're experiencing, what are the problems that they have experienced in the past. And for a suburban client that operates primarily in the private sector, you might think that performance and customization is an important value driver for the customer. The opposite might be true for a township customer that prioritizes trust and accessibility over customization or over performance. They're just looking to gain access to something because they've never had it before, or they've had a very poor experience of it before, or they've been taken for a ride, they've been cheated out before. And therefore they're looking for a lot of trust and lower risk. They're looking for more, it's going to be a new product to their market, or it's going to be something around price point that they're experiencing. So now that we've identified the opportunity, we've determined the 8 ways in which we can, the 4 ways that we can formulate an opportunity and convert an idea into that opportunity. We've then also spoken briefly about the value proposition and how we can identify what value looks like for a particular customer segment. We've then also spoken about the importance of understanding your customer segment and what they're looking for from one environment to the next, and then targeting your product to be sold into that environment based on those value drivers. We're going to meander slightly into writing your value statement. Your value statement is a tool that brings clarity to what you are selling. Your value statement is not a tagline. So I've got 2 examples. First and foremost, we've got a template there that you can write down, and you can copy and paste that. We've got a value statement is, we help your specific customer segment who has a particular problem, and you specify the problem there, by providing what you sell, what your product is, what service you offer, unlike these alternatives. The alternatives are not necessarily your competitors by name, but it's unlike if they don't purchase your product, what would they have to then settle for, which has these limitations. So that's the template that you're going to work with. And I've got these 2 examples there. The first is we help small business owners, that's your customer segment. We help small business owners who can't afford professional accounting by providing, that's the problem, by providing professional accounting with a WhatsApp-based monthly bookkeeping service, the solution that you're offering, unlike traditional accountants, which charge fees that make no sense for businesses that generate under 50,000 Rand monthly in turnover. So let's break that down a bit. The specific customer segment is small business owners. Maybe it's the informal market. The product that you're selling, that you're offering, the service that you're providing is a affordable professional accounting service or bookkeeping service. Where is your solution accessible through? It's accessible through WhatsApp. And the alternative, if the people don't use your product and service, is then a professional accounting service that is charging at more than 50,000 Rand for the bookkeeping service, which doesn't make sense if you are operating at a limited monthly turnover. Let's take a look at the second opportunity now, or the second example rather. We help working mothers in Northcliffe who struggle to find reliable healthcare or childcare, by providing a vetted community-based network with daily WhatsApp updates, unlike government creches, which have long waiting lists. So let's break this down as we've done before. The specific customer segment is working mothers in a particular geography, Northcliffe, which is in the West Rand in Johannesburg. The problem that they have is that they struggle to find reliable childcare workers or a reliable childcare service because they don't have, vetted solutions for them. And that's where you come in. Your solution is a vetted, community-based network with daily WhatsApp updates or Telegram updates or community-based updates on a dedicated channel. The alternative is a government environment or government creche. And the limitation regarding that is that there are long waiting lists for your kid to get in. And unfortunately, that's just not something that working mothers, because they have to go to the office or they have to, deliver against their KPIs and so forth. So there you can see, it's a single sentence statement that identifies who you are solving for, what problem do these people experience, how does your solution solve for that problem in comparison to the generally accepted alternative that everybody else has to now deal with, and then what's the limitation associated to that. That association from a limitation point of view might be monetary, or it might be in terms of time that we take. And I think it's important that we take stock of just how simple, yet how impactful those statements are. So as we bring this module to a close, I want you to reflect on this example. I've got another sort of a use case, if I can call it that. We've got Lerato, who's a mobile grocer. And this scenario is one that's really interesting. So her community had access to a local spaza shop where fresh produce was not accessible. So what she built was, it wasn't accessible from Monday through Friday, or easily accessible, I should rather say. And so she identified this problem that she experienced. It's not just that her community experienced it, but she experienced the problem firsthand. So what she did was she built a weekly pre-ordering vegetable box that for her street or her community, she would go and collect she would take orders for a pre-packaged vegetable box, and she would then arrange that this vegetable box be delivered either by herself or by a team of individuals that would jump on their bicycles and deliver the pre-packaged box of veggies to customers that she collected and pre-ordered them on WhatsApp. This was fairly priced. She slapped on a little bit of margin to ensure that she was able to then, either pay for the cost, the running cost of the business, or to pay anybody that assisted her. But she had no app. She had no weekend rush that occupied her time because she was delivering during the week, and she had no data costs associated to that because it all came part and parcel of a free service through WhatsApp. Within 6 months, she had 80 weekly subscribers. She didn't invent a new product. All she did was invented convenience, which is the value driver that she produced, right? Prior to the service, it was inconvenient for her community to gain access to fresh produce. It wasn't easily accessible. So she brought convenience, and she brought accessibility, and she brought trust, because she felt the product, the pain point as well. She experienced that problem as well. So leveraging convenience, accessibility, and trust, she brought that to the market, and within 6 months, generated 80 weekly subscribers. Essentially, you could think that she'd now have a team of people delivering these pre-packaged boxes of vegetables to our community. So I want you to reflect upon this as you think about it. As you think about this scenario, I want you to reflect upon a few questions. What workaround or frustration have you simply learned to live with? The way Lerato in this scenario had lived with it, in terms of the fresh produce gap. What have you built workarounds for within your own life? What frustrations have you actually just absorbed and you've tolerated? The second question is, she didn't invent a new product, right? She leveraged free products and services. She used our community as well. But she used WhatsApp and something that she had access to that required no additional cost, like a bicycle. What would it look like, rather, if you were to solve a problem with what you already have instead of waiting for funding or technology? If you can solve that manually, with no costs involved, it makes the technology solution a lot more easier, because all you need to now do is you need to build. But you've already got the processes around how you're going to get the product to your customers. You've already got that mapped out. And technology is now an enabler to help you fast track the performance of that service, to ensure that you are not only serving one community, but you're now serving multiple different communities. Essentially, you could go from 80 weekly subscribers in this use case here to 160 or to 240 in a shorter time frame. The third question, or a point of reflection that I want you to think about is, what has living and experience firsthand taught you that no amount of market research could do? And how might that be an opportunity hiding in plain sight? Oftentimes we think that we need to research a particular problem or dive deeper into the research on an idea that you might have, without actually taking an introspective view and saying, what have I experienced? And has anybody else experienced the same or similar? And that's arguably the most research that you need in order to convert that idea into an opportunity. And then lastly, if you had to reach 80 loyal weekly customers in 6 months, whose problem would you choose to solve first? And why that one? I want you to think about those questions as you navigate through this course. So we have a few takeaways. An opportunity is validated by real people, not by information on a desktop. A viable market and a willingness to pay, an idea is not. I'm going to repeat that, because I think it's extremely important. An opportunity is validated by real people, a viable market, and willingness to pay, an idea is not. There are 4 tools that you can use when trying to identify an opportunity. The first one is problem first thinking, observation of what's taking place in the market, trend spotting, that every disruption, every transformation, every change produces a gap that needs to be solved for, and then gap analysis. It's like asking the question, why are people experiencing such a bad product or service? And if people have been experiencing something that badly, what can I do to improve the performance and the quality of that service or product? There are 6 types of value: newness, performance, customization, convenience, price, and risk reduction. And it's important that you ask yourself in which sectors of society, the private sector, public sector, which sectors of the community, in suburban sectors or rural environments or informal environments, which value would be more appropriate for those designated environments. And it takes you understanding who your customer segment is and what those needs are that will help you identify the type of value that you're going to use in order to position your product or service. And then we've also crafted a very sharp, a very succinct value statement that names a specific customer, a specific problem, a solution that you are bringing out to the business or to the market, and a limitation of the alternative. So without your product or service, what would people have to just sit with and deal with? That's the limitation that they would have no other alternative but to settle for. Right? So take a moment and pause and reflect on these three questions now. What specific problem does your business idea solve for? How do you know it's real? Not just something that you think people want. The second, of the 6 types of value, which is your business most clearly creating? And is that what your customers want most? We spoke about this idea or the notion that I think it was on the very first slide of this topic. Do people actually want what you've built? And by reflecting on this second question, by identifying the 6 types of value in which your business most clearly is creating, and is that what your customers want most? Do they want it badly enough that they're willing to pay for it? And then lastly, I want you to think about this question and reflect on this as we end off this topic. Draft your value statement in a template format. Read it out loud to yourself. Record yourself talking about your value statement. Listen back to it. What does it sound like? Is it something a real customer would respond to? If you were given 30 seconds to pitch your value statement to an investor or a funding partner, would they buy it just based on that value statement that you've pitched to them? So pause and reflect on these 3 questions. What we've discussed so far are topics 1 and 2. When you come back, we will dive into topics 3 and 4 that gives us a structured way to convert these ideas into execution and gives us a great understanding of the environment that we work on. I'm Devon Paubu. I'll see you next time.
All right, awesome stuff right there, Devon. Thank you for that beautiful session. All right, so Devon will be back with us to complete Module 2, Topics 3 and 4. I promise you, you don't want to miss it. Keep learning, keep being active, keep pushing. And also, don't forget to be active on social media. Don't forget to hashtag FNB App Academy 2026. Until next time, I am your host. My name is Karabo Mohole. Peace.